This is CBC Here and Now.
Please just help us. Please just help us find our boys so we can bring them home. That's all we want.
We're in a rich country. We're in Canada. We can do better.
Election Day rescue delays. The air search resumes for 2 missing fishermen.
After it was called off last night, the family says bureaucracy is to blame.
Don't blame Ashley. A windy federal election day. Still a couple of hours, though, to cast your ballot.
As Canadians choose who will lead the country out of the pandemic.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes.
With recent public hearings in Labrador over why the Coast Guard didn't put more resources into the search for Burton Winters, similar questions now about 2 people who are missing, and once again the story is coming out of Labrador.
2 fishermen have been missing since Friday night when they didn't arrive home. The family says they were told the search would continue, but delays cost valuable time. The CBC's Heidi Adder reports.
The air search has resumed for 2 missing men from Mary's Harbour after a brief cancellation. The Joint Rescue and Coordination Centre had aircrafts in the air all weekend, then called off the search around 9 last evening, saying this is now a missing persons at sea case. But in a statement, the Ministers of National Defence and for the Canadian Coast Guard have overridden that decision today. The family of one of the missing men says there shouldn't have been a delay in the first place. They feel lost within the process.
Please just help us find our boys so we can bring them home. That's all we want.
We're in a rich country. We're in Canada. We can do better.
In a statement, the government says military aircraft and Coast Guard resources have been authorized to search more for the 2 men. The RCMP are now coordinating the search. The provincial government says it's also stepping up in light of the JRCC's decision and is supplying a water bomber to try and find any signs.
The provincial government stepped up and made sure that they made the request and they made sure that any assets that we could get into the area, air or sea, were there. And we were going to do everything that we could do in our power as a provincial government to make sure that the search continues.
There's currently an inquiry going on into ground search and rescue that also looks at air support. Hogan says they will look into the recommendations when it is done, but that these events do happen. Russell says Labrador needs more search and rescue capacity for future events like this.
The whole system is bad. More needs to be done. We need public pressure to change all this. You know, I want to bring my son home, and we want to bring Joey home. And the avenue that we got to use, and it should never have come to this.
Heidi Adder, CBC News, Happy Valley, Goose Bay.
Friends, family and supporters of those 2 missing fishermen demonstrated outside the Coast Guard building in St. John's this afternoon. More than 70 people were protesting, pushing for the search for Mark Russell and Joey Jenkins to continue.
It's emotional time for everybody, I think, across the province and beyond, but especially for those of us in Labrador who have had far too many tragedies. And despite everything that the sea have given us, you know, we're mariners by trade. That's how we earn our living. The sea have taken much. And I want to thank you all for coming out here on very short notice. The family asked that we do this. We are far from the family here in St. John's, and sadly we're often too far from services when we need them. One more day! One more day!
Well, it's important because basically I've got friends here. It's their family that's involved. And, you know, when you see as a taxpayer, a family member, a friend of people sitting in the ocean, you know, waiting to be rescued, I mean, that could be you or me one day. You know, whether it's a car accident or on a boat, we want to be rescued. And, you know, something to see us being left alone, that's the worst feeling you ever could feel in this world.
Continue the search!
It's important because, you know, I'm from Mary's Harbour, and while I don't know the boys directly, it was just important to show our support for being from Labrador. You know, we deserve better. We deserve, you know, more time to help find our boys and bring them home.
So that's what this is about today, showing support to the family, being a voice for Mark and Joey, 2 of our own that we are still hopeful can be brought home.
Now, I spoke with one of the missing men's family members, Dwight and Jeanette Russell, and they believe the search for their son Mark was thrown off schedule because of today's federal election. More of that conversation, that's coming up in about 30 minutes on Here and Now.
Well, it was a deadly weekend on the roadways right across the province. On Sunday, 2 people were killed in a crash outside a Bayvert Junction. That same day, a pedestrian was killed on Thorburn Road in St. John's after being struck by a vehicle. On Saturday, a motorcyclist was killed on Pitts Memorial Drive in a collision with a dirt bike not far from Peacekeepers Way. The other driver was injured in that collision.
Well, all that moisture from what was post-tropical Odette is now moved off. Clear skies, the story today for the most part. Ridge of high pressure in place, but also fairly windy across the board as well. We will see these winds eventually die down, but temperatures today much cooler. About 12 degrees in St. John's was the afternoon high. As you head towards the west coast, 16 degrees, and then those single-digit highs up across Labrador. Temperatures are cooling down over the next couple of days, but those winds were gusty today. Gusts upwards of 76 kilometers per hour for St. John's, 81 in Bonavista. They've died down a little bit. We're still gusting at about 65 kilometers per hour in the St. John's area, but those winds will die down as we head through the evening hours tonight. Also going to see some clear skies, and that means some patchy frost. I'll get into those details when I come back.
Well, 15 new cases of COVID-19 have been discovered in Newfoundland and Labrador. 10 of those are located in a nursing home in Bayvert in central Newfoundland. Now, that cluster of cases has launched a testing drive in the community. Here Now's Garrett Berry has those details tonight.
A testing drive continues tonight in Bayvert for anybody who visited that town's personal care home in the last 2 weeks. Lineup stretched outside the town's arena this afternoon, all in response to an emerging COVID-19 cluster at the White Bay Retirement Living personal care home. 10 cases have now been linked to the home, and public health officials have confirmed that some residents of the home have tested positive. This is now the biggest outbreak in a long-term care home or personal care home in the province.
You know, right now, there haven't been a large number of close contacts. We have followed up with anybody who's been named as a close contact, and people have been given advice around testing and quarantine. And now there is this larger group who we don't have a sense of exactly how many people that will end up being, but that's why the broader announcement went out for people who have visited the facilities.
Everyone inside the personal care home has now been tested, and those who've tested positive have been quarantined from other residents. Dutt says today's community testing will help health officials determine how this cluster started and how far it might have spread.
Main focus is to try to ensure that we contain the spread of the virus. We definitely, our goal all along has been trying to prevent severe illness, people having hospitalizations, and of course having any deaths due to COVID-19. So we want to make sure we contain the spread. And at the same time, we'd like to be able to say exactly how someone in the home may have acquired the infection. So that's part of the investigation.
Since COVID-19 was discovered in Bayvert, several businesses in the community have shut their doors. So too has the town hall. Dutt says the best way for people in the area to help with this emerging COVID-19 cluster is to get vaccinated and get tested.
Generally, if you're part of a group that there is a PSA encouraging people to be tested, please come forward and be tested. In general, when people are symptomatic, we always encourage them to be tested, whether in this area or more broadly. And I think some of the public health measures that are now back in place from last week, and some others that are just encouraged. So making sure you're wearing your mask when you're in public indoor places and trying to reduce your number of contacts.
Today's testing clinic is set to run till 7 p.m., so there is still time to get tested if you are in the community. Dutt says if more testing is required, more clinics will be offered. Garrett Berry, CBC News, Gander.
Well, in the meantime, public health is loosening COVID-19 restrictions on the Northern Peninsula. The region will move back to alert level 2 as of midnight tonight. There were nearly 24 confirmed cases of the virus in the last few weeks, prompting the alert level change, but health officials now say the risk of spread is low.
Well, after a 5-week campaign, this is voting day. Just a couple of more hours left to cast your vote. We're going to check in with Peter Cowan and Terry Roberts, who are at campaign headquarters in just a moment with what's at stake. But across the country, Canadians were at polls today voting in the 44th federal election, and many of the first votes were cast in Corner Brook. Polling stations on the West Coast saw a steady stream of voters, and the process certainly looked a lot different than 2019. Had plexiglass dividers and social distancing, as well as lots and lots of those bottles of hand sanitizer. Fewer people are permitted in at a time, so there may be a bit of a wait if you're casting your ballot a little later this evening. And a reminder, polling stations across the province will remain open until 8:30 tonight. And we spoke with some voters on the West Coast to ask why voting is important to them.
It was always important for me to vote. I always vote. Well, because I feel if I don't vote, I have no say. Really, you know, and so many things on the go right now that you need to vote.
I mean, we're the ones that live here, you know, we're the ones that are going to have to deal with these consequences. So it's just, you know, important to like exercise that right to vote so that we, you know, the changes that we want to see come into effect and we live how we want to.
Well, for me, it's our civic duty to vote. There are people around the world that are prevented from voting and violence happens as a result. We're lucky to live in Canada, and we've done it ever since we've been of age to vote.
Well, my main concern right now is COVID and how our government is going to deal with the situation, and in particular with the new variant.
I've been following up a lot on the Indigenous prospect of it, and I also was looking at the student loan aspect and the healthcare, and I've been very much focusing on all of that because I feel it's very important for us to have better healthcare, and especially for the Indigenous folks, I feel like that should be a really big concern around here.
I just feel that, you know, our country is falling apart. Yeah. I know, it's just a lot of hate and greed. You know, I don't know, it's just our world is falling apart, and there's a lot of people that don't vote, and I just think that they should.
Right, some sobering observations there. Let's bring in here and now's Peter Cowan, joins us live. He's with the NDP in St. John's East, the only riding that did not vote Liberal last time. So Peter, what's your sense of where things might go tonight?
Anthony, certainly this room is expected to fill up a little later tonight as the polls close and supporters for Mary Shortall come here in order to what they hope will be a celebration. And this is going to be a big test tonight because in 2019, the NDP won the seat back from the Liberals, but that was Jack Harris. He's not running again, and this time it's a different candidate. And in fact, Jack Harris is the only New Democrat to ever have won this seat. He won it several times. So the question now is, was that support for him or was that support for the NDP? And that's what we're going to find out tonight when those polls close. And this is a race that's received a lot of attention. How do you know that? Well, you look at where the leaders came, because over the course of this campaign, the three main party leaders only made brief stops in Newfoundland and Labrador. And for the NDPs and the Liberal leader, it was here, St. John's East, where they focused their attention. And that's because there is a lot going on here. Interestingly, the Conservative leader, he made a trip to Long Range Mountains, so clearly a sign that the Conservatives think that that may be one of their best shots for trying to turn one of those Liberal seats blue. But this is the riding that's gotten a lot of attention, so we're going to have to see tonight whether or not the NDP are able to hang on to the only seat that they've had in Atlantic Canada. Reporting live in St. John's, I'm Peter Cowan for Here and Now.
Well, Liberals hoping for a sweep of the province this time around. They'd love to take that seat away from the NDP, and they sent in some heavy hitters to help with the Liberal campaign. We go now to Here and Now's Terry Roberts, who's at the Sheraton Hotel, Newfoundland, where Liberal candidate Joanne Thompson and her supporters will gather later tonight. So, Terry, what are you looking out for?
Well, Anthony, what I'll be looking for is whether this full court press made by the Liberals in two ridings in particular, whether it produces results. Now, if you've been following this campaign, you've likely noticed that the Liberals, both provincially and federally, they put a lot of emphasis on the campaign of Joanne Thompson here in St. John's East. As Peter mentioned, of course, the Prime Minister was here in late August. And there's also been a special emphasis on the campaign of incumbent Liberal Terence Rogers in Bonavista Buren and Trinity. So over the weekend, it was the Deputy Minister, Chrystia Freeland. You know, she's a star on the national level, and her presence really is a telltale sign that the Liberals possibly think they can steal St. John's East back from the NDP after losing it to Jack Harris 2 years ago. But conversely, the fact she was campaigning with incumbent Terence Rogers in the Clarenville area, well, that could be seen as an indicator that Rogers is perhaps vulnerable to Sharon Vokey, the Conservative candidate there. Now, interestingly, Cabinet Minister Seamus O'Regan, he's also seeking re-election in St. John's South Mount Pearl. He's had quite a presence in both those ridings, so he's obviously confident in his chances for re-election. But back here in St. John's East, you've got to say, this is a race to watch. Now, Joanne Thompson, she doesn't have the profile of a Labour leader like Mary Shortall, but she's not by no means a throwaway name on a ballot. She's the former executive director of the Gathering Place, you know, where thousands of vulnerable people in the area are supported by that organization there. And she's also known in the business community. But you have to remember, prior to Jack Harris and his reign here, his 4 election victories here, this was a Conservative stalwart here. You're talking names like Norm Doyle held this riding for a long time, and go back even further than that, James McGraw. And remember, 2 years ago, Jody Wall, who's now in the caucus of Premier Andrew Furey, he got more than 8,000 votes here. So there is a strong base of Conservative support here. So don't rule out Conservative candidate Glenn Etchegaray, and he's been campaigning really hard. Reporting live from the Sheraton Hotel here in St. John's, I'm Terry Roberts.
Well, a man escaped a trailer fire after several campers went up in flames early this morning. The fire destroyed 3 campers and damaged another at the Irish Loop Resort on the Salmon Line. Volunteer firefighters from Holyrood responded and had the fire out by 8 this morning. Given the high winds early this morning, it's lucky the fire wasn't worse. Well, police are saying it's the largest illicit tobacco seizure in Newfoundland and Labrador history. The RCMP has seized an estimated 1.56 million contraband cigarettes en route to St. John's. The Federal Serious and Organized Crime Division executed a warrant at the courier company being used to ship the cigarettes from Ontario. Several people have been identified as having been involved in the trafficking. It's believed the group was highly organized and had been smuggling cigarettes into St. John's for some time. The estimated value of the seizure is around $624,000, and RCMP says that would equal a loss of more than $500,000 in tax revenue for the province. Well, 2 people in Grand Falls, Windsor were taken into custody yesterday after police received reports of shots being fired in a residential area. It happened at a home on Mayo Street. Police say the 2 remain in custody while the investigation continues and that there was no risk to public safety. Well, a 15-year-old and a parent have been ticketed following a head-on collision near Gander earlier this month. Police say 2 teens were speeding when the young driver lost control and collided with another side-by-side. 2 women in the other vehicle were taken to hospital with serious injuries. Police are reminding the public that you must be 16 years of age or older to drive an adult-size ATV. The 2 teenagers were not injured.
Well, it might be a bit early in the year for prom, but 2 seniors say they have waited long enough.
Yes, and they finally got their wish this past weekend, 60 years later. They attended a prom for seniors held last night by the Royal Canadian Legion in St. John's.
These years later, that's what I said to Jean the other day. Yeah. I said, all these years later, and we're finally going to have a prom. Yeah, it's going to be nice.
Our manager came up with the idea of having a prom night.
Yes,
so
and we went with it.
We went with
it. Yeah.
Right? We'll have a dinner at 7.
Yeah.
Then we'll clean up, and at 9 o'clock we will have a dance.
No, and then we're picking.
Band. Yeah, but that'll be in between the dances.
Yeah, picking the king and queen.
Oh yeah, we're going to have a king and a queen also.
Yes, we got the crowns and everything.
We got the crowns for them.
Yeah, they're picking king and queen,
No,
and we're picking the
valedictorian.
Yeah, we're having the, and of course, there are some prizes.
We have prizes.
Yeah, we have a lot of prizes, yeah.
And we're going to have a photo booth. You're going to have your picture
Oh,
taken.
yes, you can have your picture taken.
For $5, is it? You're going to
Yeah.
have your picture taken?
Yeah.
And you have the hats and everything to put on if you want to wear a hat and have them done.
So it's going to be really exciting.
This is what you need. You need people to be able to get out and just enjoy themselves again, because you've been locked down so long, and it's been very, very hard on the seniors, because the seniors couldn't do anything, can't go anywhere. People say, oh, well, I didn't go to my prom, so this is great. People are all hyped about it, so, and all our volunteers were hyped, as you can see by the balloons and the decorations done around here. Everyone is just think it's a tremendous idea.
The hall is done beautiful. Everybody pitched in, and they did a marvelous job.
Oh yeah, it's lovely.
You'll see if you're going to go
When
down
you go down, you'll
later,
see it.
right?
It's so lovely.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to this tonight.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, fall is right around the corner, but the temperatures look beautiful over the next couple of days. I'll get into all the details when I come back.
Time for the weather. Welcome back, Ashley.
Thank you.
It was a wet one last night, listening to all that rain coming down. Just before the wind started, it was that downpour. It's actually kind of nice.
It was,
You know?
especially if you like that sound.
Yeah.
Most of the night, most of the after, well, it showed up a little bit late, but most of the evening hours and the overnight, we did see quite a bit of rain for mainly the Avalon. Let's take a look at those numbers just for the last, well, since yesterday anyway. Fairyland, 63.4 millimeters of rain fell. Generally, most areas across the Avalon saw anywhere from 40 to 50 millimeters, including St. John's at the airport, and then dramatically dropped off as you headed towards the Isthmus. Arnold's Cove only received about 12.4 millimeters of rain. So that has since moved off, and temperatures this morning are really starting to cool down into the single digits. Only 8 degrees if you stepped out this morning in St. John's. Those temperatures up across Labrador as well, into the hovering just a degree above zero, Happy Valley, Goose Bay. And then we've got those temperatures around 3 to 4 degrees for Makkovik and Cartwright. Now, that is going to be the same story as we head through the day tomorrow, or at least the morning hours and through the overnight tonight. Frost advisory in place for much of the island, not including the northern peninsula, but we are looking at temperatures anywhere from -2 to 2 degrees, particularly in the low-lying areas. So if you do have those frost-sensitive plants, make sure you water them and then cover them if you would like them to survive by tomorrow morning. And we will see likely more patchy the further east you go through the night tonight. Now, the reason for that, clear skies for the most part tonight, thanks to that ridge of high pressure that we're sitting under, and those winds are actually going to die down as well tonight. Now, we will see the chance of a few showers up across northern portions of Labrador, maybe even through central Labrador as well, as we see some more cloud cover in play there. But it does look like a clear night for the most part for the island. Temperatures, there you go. So the low-lying areas is more than likely where we'll see them dip near or below zero, but overall, about 6 degrees in St. John's. Those winds out of the north, so they will eventually die down, but for most of the evening hours, we'll be sitting somewhere between 20 to 30 kilometers per hour, and those winds will be out of the south the further west you go. And then going to stay a little bit breezy up across Labrador as well. Temperatures much warmer, 12 degrees overnight low tonight for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and 11 for Lab City, but your winds will be a bit breezy, so you're looking at winds gusting upwards of about 50 kilometers per hour tonight. As we head through the day tomorrow, that ridge of high pressure is still in place, but we will see some cloud cover continue for most of the Big Land, certainly for the west and then towards the coast through the day, but not a whole lot going on. Now, what you don't see on here is the wind, and it will be windy as we head through the afternoon tomorrow. So by the time we get into the evening hours, that's when we'll see that wind die down. But then look at what happens towards the coast. Those gusts between 60, maybe even 80 kilometers per hour as we get into Tuesday morning. And then those winds are just going to strengthen as the afternoon rolls through. So through the day, most of the island will be seeing somewhere between 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. But then as we get into the evening hours, we could see pockets of 60 to 80, even 90 kilometers per hour for parts of the northern peninsula, and then coastal areas of Labrador as well. But other than that, it will be an absolutely beautiful day. Looking at temperatures into the high teens, about 16 degrees. We may see some areas that see maybe a degree or two warmer than that. But then as we head towards Clarenville, Bonavista should reach the 20s tomorrow. Same thing through central. Again, 20, 21 degrees as the daytime highs. Even along the south coast, still looking beautiful. 17 degrees for Harbour Breton. And then as you head towards the west coast as well, your temperatures in and around 20, 21 degrees. Northern Peninsula may even flirt with that as well, and certainly an absolutely gorgeous day. Now, fall's right around the corner. It actually arrives on Wednesday, but these are summer-like temperatures. This is well over where we should be sitting this time of year. Cartwright could reach 25 degrees tomorrow, and then similar forecasts as you head towards Happy Valley, Goose Bay, even Nain, 20 degrees as your daytime high. And again, those winds will ramp up, though southwesterlies about 30 to 50, and you'll see them even more so into the evening hours. So that's a look at tomorrow's forecast. We'll look ahead to the for the rest of the week when I come back.
We know this can't go on forever, but we're asking for 24 more hours.
And we've got to do better. Right now, this coastline is dotted with fishermen from Nain to Lanzaclaire, hundreds of miles. No Coast Guard Center, no support.
This Labrador family says the search and rescue system is flawed.
Their son and another fisherman still missing at sea. More with the Russell family. That's coming up. Well, questions are being raised about whether today's federal election is interfering and delaying the resumption of an important rescue effort at sea. The family of a missing man, Dwight, Jeanette, and Mackenzie Russell, join me now from Mary's Harbour. Dwight and Jeanette and Mackenzie, I think everybody in the island and Labrador are thinking about you. Dwight, what is it that the family wants?
Well, we just asked for some extra time because the search, even though it started 48 hours from the time they gave up, we didn't think it was adequate, and we didn't think there was enough conclusive evidence or enough information to shut down a possible situation where those boys could be found alive in a boat. And to date, we still have not got any conclusive evidence to factualize that.
My understanding is that the provincial government has been in touch with the Prime Minister's office, that Seamus O'Regan, the senior cabinet minister for the province, has been in touch, and that there are indications that directions have been given from the Prime Minister's office. What kinds of answers have you had from officials that you've tried to contact?
Well, every time we contacted, they've been telling us that from a political point of view, and they've been advocating very hard. Yvonne, Lisa, O'Regan, and went to the Minister of National Defence and Minister of Fisheries. And what we're seeing that there's been roadblocks put up in the bureaucratic system. And we don't know if this is because the election's in place or they just make that decision and it's final. But you know what we're saying here is that we're in Labrador. They come with us 2 hours before they were going to give up a search. We had no plan in place to do a search after. We're off the coast of Labrador. We don't have any Coast Guard, basically no Coast Guard boats here that's stationed anywhere in our communities. We've got a huge coastline. We've got one Coast Guard boat up there and a few planes. We just asked for a few assets for just today so we can transition from that search and rescue search to something that we can implement ourselves and with the coordination of some people and some support from the province and RCMP. So they handed this down to the RCMP, who doesn't even have a boat, to go to where my son's last position was. So right now there's no services here in Labrador for the RCMP. They're basically going back, asking the Coast Guard boat to stay there, asking air services to stay on scene. You know, it's a duplication of services that could just been continued, but we've lost valuable time, and we don't know. They've made that that conclusive decision to take the planes off and stand down, and we had a lot of support from fishermen and people out there searching, and you know, coordinating this alone would have been an asset.
And last night we had assurances from the Premier, from the representatives of the Minister of Defence saying that they were going to extend for 24 hours, that this was a done deal. It was just a matter of it trickling through the bureaucratic process. We were told they were going to hold back the media release saying that they were giving up on a search and rescue mission and switching to a recovery mission. So we had all these politicians telling us who were working really hard on our behalf and ultimately on Mark and Joey's behalf, saying this was a done deal, but still Coast Guard was adamant that no, we are standing down. We are standing down. We're done as of 2100 hours last night, even though the politicians were saying completely differently. So we feel lost within the process. There's a breakdown of information somewhere.
So you think that it's because this happens to be election day and maybe different departments are taking a hands-off approach, you know, as important, as serious as this rescue effort is? Do you think it's because of the election?
We do. We've been told that it's because of the RIT process that the Coast Guard is not taking the advice of their elected officials. We know this can't go on forever, but we're asking for 24 more hours. The first day of the search was terrible searching conditions. Very little progress was made the first day. Yesterday we had a really good day of search conditions. Today is a little bit breezier, but it's good visibility. We're just asking for another day.
Now, do you know if the guys, you know, happened to have survival suits when whatever happened? I understand there was a communication very early in the morning. What do we actually know?
They do have flotation suits on the vessel.
Yeah, survival suits, yes.
Yeah. And they have a flare gun with flares, and so there's safety equipment.
They had a VHF, yeah, and they've called. Last time they called was 4:14 on that evening, and they called the plant, and I guess they was letting the plant know that they were coming in with the fish. And 3 minutes after, Joey called his partner, and we can only think he called saying we're heading in now from our kitchen. Whatever happened from that point on, we don't know.
So Jeanette, if I could sit you and your family down with the people in charge of the Coast Guard, what would you say to them?
Oh, please just help us. Please just help us find our boys so we can bring them home. That's all we want.
We're in a rich country. We're in Canada. We can do better.
Well, everybody is hoping for the very best. We'll continue to follow this story. I know it's an extremely difficult time, and I really appreciate you reaching out because you wanted to make this point. Thank you very much, and all the best of luck in the next 24 or 48 hours.
Thank you, Anthony.
Well, as we heard earlier, 10 new COVID-19 cases have been identified connected to the White Bay Retirement Living Home in Bay Verte. And starting today, anyone who has visited the facility is asked to get tested for COVID-19. Now, the home is in lockdown with no visitation. So what's happening there? Joining me now is Central's Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Monica Dutt, who joins us from Cape Breton. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So what can you tell us about the new cases in the White Bay home?
We, over the weekend, started our investigation. We have been doing testing within the facility, but then also now starting testing in the community, both to assess, how people in the home may have acquired the infection, and then also to see if there's been any further transmission in the community.
Can you give us a breakdown of who is infected? Have any residents or staff members tested positive?
At this point, I'm not giving details because it is such a small number of people, even at this point, but everyone who has tested positive is connected with the home, and there have been some residents who have tested positive.
Do you know if anyone is in hospital?
Right now, there is nobody who is in hospital due to severe symptoms of COVID-19.
Okay, so it has been a few days. Why did public health wait to confirm that people in the personal care home had tested positive? Why not tell people over the weekend about the outbreak?
I guess time moves very quickly when you're in the midst of an investigation. So we really just started getting a sense of this on Saturday. So we have been going as quickly as we can. We wanted to make sure we had enough information to be able to share what was needed with the public. So we did have, some initial sense on Saturday. We had a better understanding on Sunday. We did do testing within the facility. That also took time and effort and resources. And then as our part of our next step, we wanted to offer testing to some specific groups in the community. So that is where we are today. So it's really been over the last 2 and a bit days that all of this has been unfolding. So it's actually, I think, moved as quickly as we're able to move.
Have the residents and staff in the home been fully vaccinated? Are there still people in there who have not been vaccinated?
I'm not speaking specific to this home. I think, like in many places, most people have tended to be vaccinated. There are often in any community and any facility going to be some who may not have been vaccinated. So I think overall, the message continues to be, if you have not been vaccinated, please do so, both for potentially your workplace or to protect yourself or your family or your community. So I don't think patterns are all that different here than other places. So I think just generally, if people can make sure that they're accessing vaccines, that would be really helpful, both in this situation, but then more to protect our communities more broadly.
And we do know that the population in that particular region of the province is one of the least vaccinated areas. At last count, 67% of the population is fully vaccinated compared to, say, like 80% on the Avalon. Are there any concerns around that if there is an outbreak in that area and people aren't as heavily vaccinated as in other areas, that it could get much worse?
It's something we're always looking at. We definitely want to have in any community as high vaccination coverage as possible. We're aiming for 80, 90%. So definitely if there are areas that do have lower vaccination coverage, we're looking at all kinds of ways that might be able to be changed, whether it's having clinics that are easier to get to at certain times that are easier to get to, pop-up clinics. We're trying a range of different strategies to make it easy as possible for people who, for a whole range of reasons, might not have been vaccinated yet. But definitely if we see lower vaccination coverage, we really would like to increase that, because in the end, we may not be able to prevent every person from acquiring COVID-19, but ideally, if you are vaccinated, it's more likely to be a milder illness. You're less likely to spread it to other people, and you're more likely to be able to protect others who are at higher risk of severe illness.
Dr. Monica Dutt, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Staying with COVID, Pfizer is seeking approval for its vaccine to be given to children between the ages of 5 and 11. The drug maker is pointing to trials that show the vaccine produces an immune response in that age group, and it's already authorized here in Canada for kids 12 and up. Now, we've been seeing more cases in young people with the spread of the Delta variant and the rise of this fourth wave. One expert says it's good news for parents who are worried about getting all those young people back to school.
when we can actually start vaccinating these children depends on how quickly the vaccine actually receives approval. But one assumes that at some point during this school year, we will be doing vaccines in elementary school children, which is going to make school at least slightly less worrisome for parents and hopefully decrease some of the anxiety that a lot of parents have been feeling about this school year.
Well, Pfizer is already looking at data for even younger children. It's looking at how well the vaccine works in children 2 to 5 years of age, even children between 6 months and 2 years.
Across Canada, people are casting their ballots in the second federal election in as many years. Of course, this one is taking place during a pandemic, and that's having a big impact on the process. Marina von Stackelberg explains.
At a gymnasium in Montreal with his 3 children, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau voted this afternoon in his riding of Papineau. In the southern Ontario city of Bowmanville, Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole voted this morning with his wife in their riding of Durham. Across the country, other Canadians cast their ballots too. Polls opened first in Atlantic Canada.
It was good. It was quick and maybe a bit more organized than usual.
I wanted to wait right till the last minute. That's when you hear everything.
Then further west.
A lot of people in a lot of places don't get to vote.
In Winnipeg, some exercise their democratic right for the first time.
Yeah, I just turned 18, so I thought it was pretty important to get my first one in and get it done right.
In some areas of Toronto, voters had to line up for over an hour, in part because there are fewer polling locations this time. Spots used in previous elections weren't big enough to meet pandemic safety requirements.
The line moved pretty quickly. It started moving right at 9:30 and yeah, I got my vote in.
It's okay. It's a sunshiny day and we're exercising our right to vote, so it's great. Some Canadians didn't wait until today to cast their ballot.
All right, here goes.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh voted in advance polls in his BC riding of Burnaby South. The leaders of the Bloc Québécois, Green Party, and People's Party of Canada also voted early. Elections Canada says a record 5.8 million people went to advance polls, and more than 1 million Canadians also applied to vote by special ballot.
Those ballots will not be counted till tomorrow. The reason is we need to do a series of verifications.
Elections Canada warns it could be days before all of those special ballots are counted. That could have an impact on tonight's results. In the last election, 9 ridings were decided by less than 500 votes. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, hundreds of thousands of Canadians have already voted by mail, and officials say it could be a few days before all of those votes are counted and verified. Now, you saw Marina in her report. Well, CBC News also spoke with Diane Benson from Elections Canada, and she tells us what to expect when the polls close tonight.
We never do know on election night what the final results are because we put out preliminary results on election night. And what we're going to see tonight is probably over 90%, maybe 95% of the votes will be counted just the way we have in past years. You're going to see that number of results. What we were trying to make people aware of is that we weren't sure how many people would vote by mail-in ballot. It looks like it's about 1 million, and those are spread out across 338 ridings. Some places not many people use that method, and other places it was higher. And those ballots will not be counted till tomorrow. The reason is we need to do a series of verifications. So if you had a mail-in ballot, it's the anonymous ballot is inside an envelope, and on the outside of that envelope, you have to sign it and declare you have not voted in another way, and there's a tracking number for it. We need to compare it to who voted today. So we look at that mail-in ballot and say, did anybody vote on election day? And so that's one of the verification steps. Only after those types of verifications are done, most of them tomorrow in the returning office, will those mail-in ballots that were sent in locally, will they be counted? And that's likely going to take place maybe into Tuesday if the count goes well, but more likely into Wednesday. And if there was a really high volume in some ridings, it could be that the count takes till Thursday or Friday.
Land and Sea is making a fresh start this fall with a brand new time slot. Beginning this Sunday, we'll be seen at 1:30 on the island, 1 o'clock in most of Labrador. And wait for it, there are new shows coming beginning October 31st, our Halloween treat to you.
Time for a look at the long range and a nice day coming tomorrow. It looks like it's going to be beautiful.
It is. It's going to be absolutely beautiful for most areas, especially through parts of Labrador. Let's take a look at the forecast for tomorrow. Temperatures in the 20s, mid-20s in fact, for the most of Labrador. Really, Happy Valley, Goose Bay, same thing for Cartwright. And temperatures across the island, beautiful as well. 16 degrees in St. John's, and as you head towards Central and the West Coast, you're looking at your temperatures hovering around the 20s. Now, the reason for that is we're sitting under a ridge of high pressure, but those winds are going to ramp up through the evening hours as we see a little bit of a tighter gradient of the isobars into the afternoon, and that's these lines here. We're going to see that generally ease as we get into Thursday as that ridge of high pressure sinks south, but then that allows some showers to move in, and that will be the story for most of Labrador towards the southeast and then the northern peninsula as well as we get into Thursday morning, and that will eventually sink a little bit further south as well. So we're looking at a little bit of an unsettled Thursday for the west coast as well, but overall not a whole lot of rain to speak of. We may see some showers as well Thursday night into Friday morning for the southern areas of the island, but other than that, temperatures will be another beautiful day. Now, this is the start of fall on Wednesday. It actually arrives at about 4:30 local time. Look at the temperatures, very summer-like, 22 degrees in St. John's as the daytime high, 24 in Gander. Similar forecast as you head towards the west coast and then even up across Labrador, hanging on to those warm temperatures again. 25 degrees will be the afternoon high at this point. Looks like for Cartwright, same thing for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, just a degree cooler, but then we get into some of that cooler air. So back down to about 10 degrees for Lab City and 14 for Nain. Now, as we get into Thursday, we're going to hang on to those warmer temperatures again for the island. However, things stay a little bit unsettled. So you're looking at that chance of showers through the afternoon. Then that cooler temperature starts to sink a little bit further south. So losing about 10 degrees for Happy Valley, Goose Bay. This is still above where you should be sitting this time of year. Your daytime highs are usually around 9 degrees. And then for Cartwright, you're looking at 11 degrees. Now, once we get into Friday and Saturday, the temperatures are going to start to dip. Overnight lows as well. 7 to 9 degrees for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland. But other than some showers Thursday night, it's a pretty glorious week. 13 degrees by Friday, so it will feel a little fall-like, but then jumping right back up onto Saturday, hovering around 17 degrees as your daytime highs. We're looking at a similar drop in temperatures across central and western Newfoundland, but then as we get into Saturday, back up to 19 to 22 degrees. And then for eastern Labrador, a drop for you, and you're going to stay in the teens for the most part. Some rain will move in, it looks like, just in time for the weekend, and a little bit sooner for western Labrador. Friday and Saturday looking a little rainy at this point with 11 to 16 degrees as your daytime highs. Had to share this photo.
Oh, wow.
Red sky at night in Catalina. Thank you to Kayla for sharing that. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that's gorgeous. So pinky and purpley beautiful.
We've had some pretty glorious sunsets lately.
Yeah, and I bet we're going to have a few more this week. That weather forecast looks great.
It does.
Worth reminding everyone about that frost advisory, though, tonight,
Yes.
though, because I know I have a couple of things that I'm going to have to cover up this evening, my peppers and stuff, so keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Well, that's it for us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Hope we'll see you again tomorrow.
Yep, should be interesting seeing what happens tonight.
It's going to be a late night for a lot of people.
It certainly will. See you tomorrow.
Good night.